My thighs are so sore from working out the other day. I don't think I can really do a dancing intro this time, to be honest. I might have to wait till the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Forgive me, I'm gonna have to put this down. And I passed my oral examination on December 16th, and then I passed my practical flight portion on December 29th, about 2 weeks later. So I decided to separate it because I could talk about it more in depth. It makes more sense, and I did actually take it on separate days. Normally at checkride, you do the oral examination and then you go fly on the same day. So I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty special that I got to actually separate the days. It was pretty nice. I got a lot of sleep in between, and I was ready, of course. I was ready to pass and to fly December 16th, but the weather was so bad. You know, if you watch my other video, some of the worst weather I've ever seen. No fly day, completely a no fly day. So we rescheduled for the 29th, and we were going to fly at 9 a.m. and then I said, hey, can we push it back to 11 or 12 p.m? And he said, sure, the examiner. And then I texted him later and I was like, push it back even later. Like I didn't word it like that, but what was really awesome was he agreed to that. I'm never as scared for the flight portion as I am for the oral examination. I don't know what it is, but the oral examination always terrifies me because you're in a room with an examiner, and if you have a weakness, they're going to find it. That being said, I was not really nervous for the flight portion at this point because y'all know, and if you don't know, my check ride got rescheduled a lot. I failed the first time. I went through a lot with my instrument training, so by the time December 29th rolled around, it was just a normal flight to me. I promise you that is the best way to approach your check ride. Approach it like it is a normal flight. Be as safe as you normally would. And then if you don't pass, if you think about it, that's actually a good thing because it means that you weren't safe or maybe not competent enough. And I say that with the utmost love and yubira de ini mamya, that if you don't pass, that really just means that the examiner did something right. They just prevented an accident or maybe a death or your death happening in the future. Just realize that it's just a regular flight. So just as long as you're safe and you operate normally, you should pass. You are already rated at this point. The only reason you wouldn't pass is if you do something exceptionally dangerous or extremely dumb. A quick note about that. So I wanted to know the examiner I was testing with. Yeah, I wanted to know exactly what approaches we were doing. You feel me? I wanted to know exactly what the weather was going to be like. You know what I'm talking about? But the day of, things changed even last minute before we got in the plane. And so things change last minute when you go flying all the time. You have to learn to be very flexible in this job. Aviation is a very volatile industry. I've said this before in my videos, but honestly, if you are someone who likes to be a planner and if you like things to be concrete, that's going to be hard to enjoy aviation, I think, because one of the beauties of this industry and of flight training is that things are gonna change all the time, baby. We looked over our weather. We made some last minute changes even up until the moment before we got on the plane. Even when we were in the plane and flying, they had pre-flighted the plane before he got there. I think my pre-flight was 15-30 minutes. I'm pretty streamlined at this point. We took off VFR, so we took off visual, and he was pretending to be ATC for me. He was pretending, he gave me instructions, but we did have flight following. So we took off VFR and we just did a straight climb out and we turned pretty direct onto McMinnville. McMinnville's very close to Pearson. And then I contacted flight following. Portland Sky 1234, 3000 climbing 4000, requesting flight following McMinnville. Simple, quick, short, sweet, cute, buttercup, honey, baby, sugar, whatever you want to call your significant loved other one. For me, that's flight following. I love them. I used to hate them in private, but I love the radio. I love ATC now. Anyways, for a different video. So I contacted flight following. We had flight following. They were able to give us straight in radar vectors to final for the ILS. So yes, the ILS is technically the hardest approach that you can do. This one was very easy because we also had it straight in, so it's just like, can you fly a straight line? No, I didn't used to be able to. Don't worry about it. I'm also wearing the same shirt because I wear the shirt a lot, but it is way too important to keep y'all waiting any longer, so I need to continue it. So, I mean, it wasn't too big of a deal. It was basically, can you fly a straight line? And we didn't do the procedure turn or holding pattern or anything like that. We did go missed, and then we went into the holding pattern, and we actually held 3 or 4 times, which you'll see here. This is a very pretty holding pattern. If I could say for myself, I'm proud of you, Abby. That's a cute holding pattern. It was so easy to the point that we were flying, and I was thinking like, okay, This is too easy. This is too easy for my instrument check ride. And I don't want to say that I overhyped it or anything like that, but I will say that my check ride definitely was less stressful than lessons I've had. I've had much more stressful lessons because I've had lessons in actual IMC. I've had lessons where I was sick and trying to scan the instruments and I just like couldn't even concentrate or focus. I held the needles very well. Honestly, that is definitely one of my better ILSs, if not one of the best ones I've ever done. It was just really like, it was really laid back. It was very calm and I was in a very calm state and I made sure to always stay ahead of the airplane. So we went missed on the ILS for runway 22 at McMinnville. He told me beforehand that we were going to go missed, so we did communicate that. And if you don't communicate that, definitely be sure that you know what you're doing. Don't just think to get to the DA or the MDA, think, well, what are you going to do past that? Once you reach that altitude, you're either going to land or go missed or circle, so you have to think about that. After we went missed, we went and did a hold. I wasn't really prepared to do a hold right after going missed because we were going to do a different approach, but things basically changed in the air in real time as we were shooting the ILS. And that's what I was talking about, being flexible with flight training and your whole aviation career, because that type of thing happens all the time. And we wanted to go to Aurora, but weather wasn't really permitting it. And we saw a little bit of some clouds, and just out of safety, we actually got a pop-up IFR clearance. So we were not on an IFR clearance, on an IFR instrument flight plan for my whole check ride, except for the second approach. I wasn't super prepared for that because I was having the confirmation bias that we were going to be going to Aurora, but also I knew that things could change mid-air, so I was like, okay, Abby, configure for a hold, get ready to be in a hold. So I slowed down a little bit on the RPMs, but we were in the hold about 3 or 4 laps deciding what to do next, and VOR Bravo circling approach at McMinnville. And what I did was I basically backtracked it up and then I tracked it back out because of the configuration that we were on that side of the airport. We were on the west side of the airport. A quick note that I do want to say, so if y'all watched the first part of my check ride series, the oral examination, I talked about a couple mistakes that I made or a couple shaky moments, and if you want to know more, those are in the video. But for the flight portion for this video, I actually didn't make any huge mistakes. I didn't have any moments where I was sweating really hard or I was freaking out or anything. Probably the only time during the flight portion that concerned him, and he said this in the debrief later, was the VOR DME Bravo circling approach for McMinnville. So I was high. On that approach, I was high. I passed over the airport high. I went on a little bit of kind of an upwind pattern, which is good. I got the circling right, and I did that well. That wasn't dangerous at all, but I was just high. I was a lot higher over the airport than I should have been, and we talked about that. We debriefed it, but I do think what saved me was that I was aware. I was aware I was high, and before even on the approach, I was talking about the instruments, and I was saying I definitely appear to be a little bit high on the altitude as well. We hit the VDP, and I'm this amount of numbers too high, so he knew that I was aware, I knew that I was aware, and I was telling him this. The biggest and kind of the only mistake that I made during my check ride for the flight portion was being too high on the VOR approach. And I was worried about doing a circling approach. I will say everybody has different things they're worried about or different weak spots. I will say a quick note. I'm a little bit dyslexic. Sometimes I be looking at that altimeter and I am reading it nearly 1,000 feet off or 500 feet off. So just be aware of your weaknesses and be ready to jump on them. Because I was aware of the dyslexic thing with the altimeter, and because I was aware that I was worried about a circling approach, and because I was aware that I was high on that approach last time, I was verbally talking about this. I was verbally noticing it. My eyes never left the instrument panel. I always knew what was going on. And because of that awareness, he maybe could have failed me. He maybe could have been like, that's way too high. This is disgusting. Let me out of this plane. But we talked it over as soon as it happened. And he said, that was a good circling approach. You were a little bit too high. And I said, I know. And they're going to know what to expect, because even if you're not performing perfectly, they know that you're on top of it and you're safe because you are aware and you're in the situation and you're in the moment and you are controlling the aircraft. It's not controlling you. You will notice a trend. Both of those approaches were pretty easy. I mean, we did a holding that was a direct hold. Like, I wanted something a little bit spicier. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted a little bit of a teardrop entry. I was a little bit stressed at this point because I'm thinking, okay, I'm not calling anyone out except myself, but he could have failed me if he would have wanted to. Let's go back to the airport, or take me back to the airport. You know you failed because they're cutting it short before you finished. And I'm just thinking, okay, he hasn't said it yet. Is he gonna say it when we get a little bit closer to Pearson? What's he gonna say? He didn't say too much. I knew I was gonna hear it in debrief. I knew that it was gonna come up in the debrief, and it did, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we went to unusual attitudes, and then we requested the approach for the RNAV GBS for Hillsborough. It was busy. We were fighting with some jets on the way in. It was kind of exciting, you know, because I don't fly into Hillsborough too often, so I'm like, okay, this is cool. We landed with a lot of other traffic. I think there was a King Air or something in the area. There was some jets. We were just a little baby playing in their arena, so we landed and we were actually on the ground at Hillsborough for a while. That being said, the RNAV went very well. It again was, I'm I'm like really proud of those approaches. Like those approaches were pretty decent. We didn't really have any wind or turbulence that day. It was a very calm, typical winter day. I had the airport diagram out, taxied back. I did that well. We were communicating what to do next because we weren't really sure. We weren't expecting it to be this busy. And then we went to and waited next to a jet. Waited on the ground for a while. I flew 2.4 hours. I promise you, 0.4 of that was probably waiting at Hillsborough on the ground waiting to depart again because all these jets are a lot faster than us, so we had to wait a minute. After that, we took off VFR and we went back to Pearson. This was a moment where I was letting myself relax a little bit, but of course not fully. You fly the plane until it is fully chalked in or tied down or in the hangar and turned off. The key is out and master is off. You do not stop flying the plane. So even though I knew at this point that I had passed, at this point I knew that I was an instrument pilot unless I really did really bad on the landing, the last landing, but that wasn't gonna happen. My landing at Pearson was actually really good as well. Now that I think about it, I was feeling proud at this point. I really was. Like the pride was kind of settling in because I'm like, you did it. Oh my gosh, you did it 2 days before the new year. We taxied back to the hangar and I was really taking my time at this point because I'm not about to get in an accident or something, an aircraft strike 2 minutes before I'm about to be an instrument pilot. That is not happening. So we got back, we hangared and tied down and we debriefed. So for the debrief, it was pretty short, but I do want to share what he said because every check ride is a huge learning experience, and if I can give you some free learning for my check ride, I want to do it. It's a little bit weird, but I was honestly a little bit disappointed because he didn't really have any feedback for me. I asked him what I could improve on or anything that he really wanted to tell me, but he said the only thing I want you to practice and the only thing that I was a little bit concerned on in the moment was the VOR approach. I already knew he was going to debrief me on it, so and he gave me some encouragement for that, and he also said it is better to be too high than too low, of course, but ideally you want to work on that, and I said that I would work on that, work on perfecting my instrument approaches even more. So that is something I'm currently working on now as a commercial pilot in training. It feels so good to say. That feels so good to say. It makes me want to go study for 18 hours, but I have to go to work. But it makes me want to study. Other than that, he complimented me. I was like, whoa, 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 slow down with the compliments. Like, I feel uncomfortable. And he also said, I never felt like you didn't know what was going on. You always knew what was going on. You were always ahead of the airplane. You always had your head in the game and you were always on situational awareness. And he told me that. That being said, the commercial pilot in me knows I need to go study systems more. I'm gonna go study for a little bit and then I have to head to work here. It's also getting dark, so the lighting is leaving. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are safe and doing well and being kind to yourself and others. I hope you are studying and hitting the books, but also giving yourself the rest that you need. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye. Y'all are gonna hear the winding, and those are just the gyros. I almost said euros. Those are the gyros in. Well, that's my old coworker, isn't it? That was impressive. I'm not gonna lie. That's some impressive hovering, man. Nice. If you love flying, which I assume you're a fly frame because you love flying. I mean, you can't be in it for the money. I gotta take a second to, well, he's an attractive man. Stop pre-flighting his helicopter. What the hell are you talking about? But that's not what I stopped for. That's not, I promise, I swear. I gotta take a second to just dwell on the fact that I am instrument rated. That feels so good. Because you're playing with weather, you cannot control weather. It's kind of weird actually that so much of aviation revolves around weather, which is a phenomenon that we have not been able to control, and we're in the 21st century. We think we're so evolved and we can't even control our own weather. It's really odd when you think about it. I'm like in the area of my first aviation job that I got let off of after 2 weeks, and he was actually chief pilot at the time. Long story short, this man remembered me. YouTube has really upped my skills in talking to myself. Who would have thought that you could make a living off talking to yourself? And now I'm actually doing that both with YouTube and with aviation. Look at me now, mama. Vesfikata? Yeah. Talking to myself. Always talking to myself. It's crazy because that after I lost that job, I lost a lot of hope that I would ever continue in aviation. And then here we are, I'm passing my instrument, and he's the one who saw me get fired. Like, it's enough to make a grown man cry. Oh, why is it so close? I'm getting blinded.
So like, I'm just stoked out of my mind. Like the fact that I could just go take this plane right now and fly anyway. I mean, I can't because my mom wants me to go grocery shopping. But anyway,